Welcome back. We're turning the spotlight on women in leadership in the ANC. ANC Parliamentary Caucus leader Pemmy Mojadina and the Parliamentary Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula recently said they were disappointed in the few women elected to ANC conferences thus far. Earlier, the ANC's National Executive Committee moved to disband its Women's League and replace it with a national task team. So what about the women agenda in the biggest political party to discuss? We're joined by a political science lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Fikile Vilakazi. Doctor, thank you for being with us. Firstly, is the disbandment fait accompli? Is the ANC Women's League going to die?
Good evening, Francis, and good evening to the viewers. That's a huge question, right, facing citizens in the country when it comes to the question of women leadership. The answer lies in the public domain, what we can see going around with the disbanding of the leadership of the ANC, the manner in which, patriarchal agenda within the African National Congress is displaying itself just in the treatment of women leaders. You can see recently, for example, in the manner that the debate in the public took place around Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, for example, and the President Cyril Ramaphosa on the question of the opinion piece that she shared, of course, talking about her opinions around issues of poverty, her opinion around issues of decolonization, her opinions generally around the judiciary in the country. There's been a lot of criticism around that. But you can also see in the manner that over time, really since 1912, if you go way back, the women of the African National Congress have been treated within the political party, right? They've constantly been a struggle since the leadership of Umama Ushalot Maxeke. Women in the ANC have always been relegated to this positionality of either being social workers or having to support the struggle of men, but not necessarily being seen as leaders in their own right, until very recently when we saw under the leadership of former President Thabo Mbeki, the rising of Umama, the Deputy President, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who is back in the country, by the way. So that is quite a question that is big and facing us as citizens of South Africa to say 110 years, Francis, this year, ANC will be no woman leader, no woman president. What does that say about ANC as a political party in terms of patriarchy, in terms of the dominance of masculinities within the politics of the country? So it is a worrying question.
Well, the question is, do you need a strong women's league to see female leaders elected? Because that hasn't happened in the past. Just looking at the women's league, Batabile Dlamini, the leader of the women's league, has been convicted of perjury. So I think it's fair to question the leadership of the Women's League. Others, however, say that the league is being punished because she wants a female leader. She's not supporting Cyril Ramaphosa, the dominant faction. Is this about factional politics? How do you see it?
Well, let's come to the question of Umama Ubatabile Dlamini's standing, and the recent allegations around her name. I was looking at the African National Congress Constitution. Section 25(17)(2) actually talks about the character of members of the ANC who are convicted in a court of law without an option of a fine to have committed an act of misconduct. And I really was asking myself this question, and we are debating it in a number of other feminist circles, whether Umama Ubatabile actually deserves the kind of treatment that she's receiving, even now as she has voluntarily decided to go and face the Integrity Committee of the ANC, given Section 25(17)(2. And if she does get perhaps a decision to say, of course, already step aside, you can't lead, even in terms of the decision of the NEC around the task team that was elected, she was refused possibility of chairing that task team, mainly because of the allegations. So if all those things surrounding them, even if they happen, right, what it means for me and for many of us is that the ANC is facing a constitutional crisis, not just around the leadership of women in the organization, but is facing a political crisis that is constitutional within itself. It is actually a organization that is going through some kind of a crisis, but also a very highly layered crisis, including a crisis of patriarchy, right? Because the manner in which Umama Ubatabile has been treated, just on the disbandment question, the question of allegations, has been so different compared to, for example, people in Mpumalanga, some of the leaders also, I think recently, who had these allegations, but were allowed to stand in as leaders of task teams in those particular spaces. So for me, there's a lot of crisis going on there. There's a lot of hypocrisy, but there's also inconsistencies, right? Yeah. Not suggesting that Mamba Tabile should not be, treated in the manner that she is. So there is that, right? But there's also the question of the relationship between Mamba Tabile as the representation, as a symbol of leadership within the ANC, and that of the broader women's movement in the country, and that of the broader feminist movement in the country, and broader politics in the country, in the sense that the ANC Women's League has never been seen as a feminist organization, right? Yeah. It has never been seen as an organization.
That's what I wanted to bring up, Doctor. The ANC Women's League hasn't always supported female leaders, and it's been criticized for that. So we're running out of time. My final question is, what difference could it make if the Women's League is gone for the elective conference in December? How significant was it as a voting bloc? And what about the general female members in the ANC? It's often said that, they're pretty numerous, but they are the ones, and we've seen it in elective conference after elective conference, voting in majority male leaderships. Are women in the ANC anti-women?
Very, very powerful question, not just for the ANC Women's League, but for all of us as women of South Africa. Are we able to provide support to one another? Can we support women in positions of leadership? It's a highly contested feminist question for the country. But my answer to that is that, for women in the ANC, I think I would like to say it is not going to be possible to rise up and be a president of this country for as long as you're operating within the structures of the ANC, because the ANC is a patriarchal organization. What does that mean for all of us as women in South Africa and feminists? It means that we need to think about alternative ways of organizing ourselves. One person said that if they don't give you a chair on the table, you have to bring in a folding chair, which means that you establish alternatives. I do not foresee a situation in December where the ANC will bring the leadership of a woman president. I do not foresee it in the next 100 years. But what I do foresee is that women in political parties, including the ANC and other political parties, perhaps civil society organizations and collectives, can come together and rally for political power to support one another and imagine, perhaps even do in action and in practice, the leadership of a feminist government.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, Public Policy and Political Science Lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.